Hi, I'm Megan Walker. I've been wanting to do this series for some time now. I've been wanting to put together some videos all about something I'm really passionate about, and that is marketing and your own personal brand. So personal brand, what is it? Personal brand to me is how I present or portray myself either on my website, on videos that I do, Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere that I've basically got a presence where I am sharing content or I'm doing presentations. So basically a way in which I'm presenting myself. So if you think about when you go for a job interview, you want to sort of present the best version of yourself, one would hope, one would think. So you are dressing a certain way, you are answering your questions a certain way to the interviewer, and you're portraying yourself in the way in which you want them to see you. So for me, the personal brand that you build up should be hopefully the authentic version of you, but it's the way in which you wish others to see you. Now, I know that I have a personal brand, but I didn't set out to build that for myself. I just set out to share content and write in a style that I hoped others would be able to gain insight from. Wrote in a style that I hoped was easy to follow and understand. And whenever I share content, I always try and share it in a way that, again, is easy to follow and easy to understand. So I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm building a personal brand here. I was just hopefully coming across as being authentic and being myself. So personal brand, yes, I think I have one. I don't think I set out to build a personal brand. I think it just kind of happened naturally and happened organically as I shared more content. I think if you were to meet me in person, if you haven't already, hopefully it wouldn't be a surprise if when you meet me. I feel that I am very much the same person. I'm friendly, I'm welcoming, I like to engage in conversation, I want to find out more about other people, especially having sort of one-on-one conversations. So I think that I am, yes, I've portrayed myself in the way in which I actually am. I think if you are building this personal brand, you don't want to then meet people and have people say, oh, they're not who I thought they were, and in a negative way. So thinking about yourself, try not to try, if that makes sense. Don't think, ooh, I'm going to build this persona and I'm going to present myself in this way if you're not that way in real life. It's a lot of effort, and unfortunately that will probably then end up coming through and people maybe not trusting what you're saying because you come across as being inauthentic. When you first start out sharing content, you may tie into a specific area of either the current industry that you're in. So for me, that's the Power Platform, that's Dynamics. It could be any sort of industry that you are sharing content about. When you first start doing that, you might try and tie your own personal brand into that specific thing. So for example, I have done a lot of stuff about Forms Pro, but that's not what I started with. I started doing things about CRM, Dynamics 365, and so on. And then Forms Pro became a part of that. I think if I'd started out and I'd been doing Forms Pro and that was my starting point, if I had tied myself in and called myself Forms Pro Queen or Forms Pro MVP or whatever it might be and started my own brand around that, I think that's where I may have failed because that's not just me. And if I then go off and veer off and talk about other things, people are expecting just Forms Pro. So I think for me, using my name means that no matter what I do in my career, like as in my job or as in the career within the community, whatever I do, I'm not tying myself to one specific topic. So I can kind of go off and try new things and learn about new things and then share those new things rather than just being, well, I just have to do Forms Pro. Or I just have to do emojis or whatever that might be. So I think as well, be careful when you start out, if you're just starting now, and think about either what you've given yourself as a name, maybe on Twitter with your handle, or if you created a YouTube channel, and think, am I almost boxing myself in and putting myself into that sort of smaller area in terms of what I feel that I can share, because I've given myself a name that ties me to a specific product or a specific area of my industry. So something to keep in mind, again, if you're just starting out. For me, my name that's not going to change. So that's what I used. It just felt like it was, again, the more authentic version of me rather than coming up with a nickname. That's not to say that that's wrong, because it certainly works for many, many people. And I admire a lot of people who have given themselves different monikers. But yeah, think about that in terms of, are you putting yourself into a box? So for me, consistency is really important. Consistently sharing content or consistently using specific imagery or logos, and making sure that whenever somebody comes to your site, they're seeing something that's familiar to them. You're being consistent with the content that you're putting out there. So this is just kind of the first video, just to kind of talk through what it is that I'm going to be sharing. In the upcoming videos, we're going to be talking about how you get started with things like a website, with YouTube, with Twitter, with LinkedIn, and so on. And we're going to talk about the different processes and the different tools that you could potentially use. There'll be some video sharing in terms of, I'll be going through and showing you how to do things. And then again, we'll have that feedback and that advice or that knowledge from other people that I feel do have a personal brand within the Dynamics community. So from this point, let's go ahead and hear from some other people and hear what they think about personal brand and their own specific personal brand, if at all they feel they have one.
I think that before I can tell you kind of what personal branding means to me, I want to read what Wikipedia thinks of personal branding. And they say personal branding is the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of an individual by positioning them as an authority in their industry, elevating their credibility, and differentiating themselves from the competition to ultimately advance their career, increase their circle of influence, and have a larger impact. You know, I never intentionally set out to create a brand or become kind of a person of authority in the market or anything like that. It just happened naturally. I just enjoyed telling people what I thought. I still do, and not just about Dynamics, about anything. If you know me, you know that that's the case. And when I started talking about Dynamics 365, it was only a matter of time until people started noticing me and following me and asking me questions. They wanted to get my opinion on stuff.
Well, I do think I have a personal brand, and that's Scott Durow. Because I think people do see my name, and then they do associate it with me, with the things that I've done in the past. Absolutely, it happened naturally. I never set out to actually have a brand. In fact, really, when I started in the Dynamics 365 world, Dynamics CRM world, this whole notion of personal brand and brand identity for individuals really didn't exist. It was just a group of people posting in forums.
To me, personal brand, if it's not done right, it changes how you think of things. It changes you to think of yourself as a brand. And LinkedIn is full of this. It's full of people giving inauthentic posts, things that they may not even really care about, but they think they have to be that person to support that brand.
I think it evolved over time. I never, purposely set out to create a brand. I mean, a few years ago, I started blogging. I created a Twitter account and, started to share a few things that I found online that were interest, specifically within Microsoft Business applications. It just wasn't really a personal thing like what Facebook is.
Yes, I did intentionally set out to create the brand. I wanted to make sure that people knew me, and they knew me as somebody who was very forward and wanted to take responsibility for things and so on, all the way back to university. So yes, I did intentionally set out to create the brand.
So it's me, but with a bit of a filter, because there's some things that don't add value. So I like to focus on what value I can add in the business application space. I'm aware of who my audience are, whilst also being true to myself. But there's a lot of things I have that aren't valuable in this space, but they're still part of me. So I'm a group exercise instructor. I love jigsaw puzzles and I really love doing exams. But that's not always valuable for me to talk about. That's something for me, that's personal, it makes me who I am, but it's not part of my brand. But that doesn't mean that my brand is not genuine to me.
I think my personal brand, the customary brand, is a true reflection of who I am. Not quite. It's a bit like most people's social media profiles. It's the best of who I am. It's who I am when I know that other people are looking. But you don't get to see all the struggles and all the strife and all the fun stuff bringing up kids at home. That's not what my personal brand is about. So yeah, it's my professional personal brand, I guess.
I think most of my brand pretty much happened naturally and then is now becoming more intentional. When I first started out, I was just focused on sharing content that was relevant for other people like me. And so that was really my focus.
My personal brand, my public persona is absolutely a true representation of who I am. I have met people in person who've said that to me, that I am exactly what they expected. I've certainly found the same of pretty much everyone else I've met in the community as well. I'm not a good enough actress to have a personal brand out there that's something that I'm not.
Do I think my personal brand is who I am? Yeah, I mean, it contains my name. It's not my full name. It contains what I'm focused on, which is Power Automate, and I create flows, and I love automation. So Flow Joe is just really a defining factor of who I am. And I really like the name. I really like the sound of the name. I like the little icon that I've made of myself with the little flow shirt. It's easy to understand, it's simple, but it's effective, and I really like how my brand's turned out.
I think to sum it up, people should know my name without seeing my name or hearing my name. So when I create a blog post content or create a video or even create a tool that someone is using, it should be obvious that this content of whatever kind it may be was created by Jonas. Then I have my personal brand. I don't have to sort of bloat my name all over the place. I should just be able to use my icon form language and my colors that I use in all my decks and my icons and my blog posts and everything. And people should know, okay, this is from Jonas.
I made a conscious decision a couple of years ago when I started being more active in the community as to whether I wanted to kind of brand things as myself or some sort of persona or some sort of name, or whether I wanted to use the corporate brand that I had already established for my company. And in the end, I chose to kind of do everything under the corporate brand.
I would say that my brand was organic at its inception, but grew with intention. Once the seed sort of sprouted on its own, I watered it, cleared the weeds, nourished it into adolescence. It's still very young, but it's growing in a specific and intentional direction.
So that's it for now in this series. If you've enjoyed this, go ahead and like and subscribe, leave a comment. We've got just links in the description below to all of the people that have shared information and advice. So if you want to find any of those MVPs, you can certainly do that, going to their different social media channels or their website. And let me know what you think in the comments below.